Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brody Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to today's show. My guest today is Robyn Openshaw, who is the author of 15 books, including The Green Smoothies Diet and 12 Steps to Whole Foods. Her latest book, Vibe, Unlock the Energetic Frequencies of Limitless Health, Love, and Success, will be released in October 2017. She's a former psychotherapist, university professor, and has lectured in 450 cities in the 6 years since launching her popular greensmoothiegirl.com in 2007. She's a single mom to 4 children who are now flying the coop. She skis and plays tennis competitively in Utah and believes that anything's possible if you leverage the highest frequencies in the universe. You can find her podcast, Your High Vibration Life, on iTunes, and also look for Green Smoothie Girl on Facebook and at her website, greensmoothieGirl.com. Robyn, I'm so excited to have you on the show. This is like our third attempt at this conversation due to technical difficulties, but after meeting you last month at Mindshare, I knew that I really wanted to interview you because you've got some interesting stuff going on. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Brody.
Could you briefly recap your journey from Green Smoothie Girl to someone who's interested in the vibration of all that exists in the universe?
Yeah, I discovered the power of eating whole foods. I eat a mostly plant-based diet, and that happened because my weight was out of control. I had 21 different diagnosed diseases, and I'd gone through years and years of infertility. Finally had a baby, lost his twin, and then my son at a year old was really, really sick. And in the process of discovering that medicine would completely fail him, he fell below the 5th percentile for weight. He was on all kinds of drugs. He was in and out of emergency rooms and hospitalizations and doctor's offices. I ended up finding out that if I just ditched the standard American diet and got him off of all the, milk that we bought at the grocery store and the processed food and the hot dogs, and we were eating the worst of the bad. I got him onto a diet of whole foods, and everything turned around, not just for him, but for me. I lost 70 pounds. I ditched 21 diseases, all of them. Haven't been back on those drugs. I'm 50 years old now. That was half my life ago. And by getting my son off of dairy products and sugar and flour, processed foods, we made some dietary shifts, and my son was never, ever on any of those medications again. It just absolutely turned it around. Then I wanted to have 3 more children. I've raised all of them. It's been, the oldest one's 24 now, and I've never had them on antibiotics. They don't get sick. It was absolutely life-changing. And going down the road, I started to discover some scientific principles that we could call quantum physics. I think it all started with quantum physics. I tripped on a quote by Albert Einstein saying that everything in life is vibration. And I said, if everything in life is vibration, why don't I know what that means? And you might relate to the next quote by Nikola Tesla, one of my heroes. And Tesla said, if you want the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So these great scientists, so many years ago, Tesla and Einstein were telling us that everything in life is vibration. There is no matter, there's just energies. And I in this new book that I'm releasing right now called Vibe, I explore what quantum physics and quantum biology can teach us about nutrition, because we're still using these really outmoded ways of evaluating food, like calories. Calories were sort of invented in 1848, and here we are 170 years later, still making evaluations about whether our food is good or bad based on constructs like calories. It's not serving us well. It doesn't really have anything to do with whether food is good for us or not, whether it's going to give us sustainable energy or not, for instance. So the book is about not just food, it's about all of the things that help us live in high vibration. And, Einstein and Tesla were talking about this way before we were ready to hear about it. And now, vibrational frequency is very mainstream. And in modern medicine, we have the EEG and the ECG can tell us the vibrational frequency of our heart and our brain. We have energy medicine really making a big showing in treatment as well as diagnostics. You can cut someone open, an inch and send in a laser, which is just focused frequencies. Frequencies can kill and frequencies can heal, but the killing frequencies, you can go in through a 1-inch incision in your abdomen and literally cut out, chop up, and pull out an organ that's diseased or non-functional. And then once you pull out an organ that needed to be removed surgically, you can actually help the damaged tissues heal 10 times faster by using a laser that is focused healing frequencies. So, energetic frequencies should be a concept that we're familiar with. And then what my goal really was with this book is to help people become more mindful of the fact that they are living in energetic frequencies. They are eating foods that have specific measurable electromagnetic frequencies. And I want to share with you a quick principle of quantum physics that has everything to do with what you do, Brody, as a practitioner of Chinese medicine, that has everything to do with nutrition. It has everything to do with the people we spend our time with. Here's a principle that if all your listeners got from this was this one principle, it'd be worth listening. And that is that a substance of a higher frequency can cause a substance of a lower frequency to increase.
Well, that's really interesting. And why is a high vibration better?
Sometimes, it's not just about high vibrations. It's kind of being a little bit simplistic to say we're always seeking the high vibrations. But, if we hooked you up to an ECG and measured your heart waves while you sit there in anger, Heart Math Institute publishes this kind of research. I love the Heart Math Institute stuff. It's really fascinating. They've come a long way in helping facilitate rolling this kind of talk about frequency out into the mainstream. But if you were connected to an ECG measuring your heart waves, we could discern what it looks like when you sit there in anger. We would see jagged, little, sharp, chaotic frequencies, not particularly consistent. And then they do this. This is actually, I have a picture of it in my book. We give them credit, of course. The same exact person who sits in gratitude, even for a matter of seconds, your heart waves will completely change. And gratitude vibrations look like what they feel like. They're smooth and flowing and consistent, just like the anger vibrations look like what they feel like when charted on paper from an ECG. They look sharp, thick, blocky, inconsistent. And so higher vibrations are associated with those high frequency emotions. We are affected by our foods. We are affected by whether we go outside and charge our electrical battery in the air and the sunshine and in contact with earth. Pleasure and compassion and joy and creativity have all been measured to be higher frequencies. I'm very interested in the notion of energy. Obviously, someone who manipulates the life force that flows within our bodies for a living as an acupuncturist. It's fascinating to me how we can use energy to affect our physical being, and that basically an acupoint is a portal of energy. It's an access point for the body, and each acupoint has a particular message, just like a key on the keyboard. It's like the very specific functions of each point that have been identified thousands of years ago. But really, it's like a mini chakra. It's a mini like center of energy in the body. We can even think of them as like little micro organs in terms of the way that they function. They have a particular job to do. And we can stimulate points on the body and therefore give our bodies a particular message by tapping into the particular kind of energy that runs through those points. And the idea that we know that energy flows not only within our bodies, but between us and around us, and that what's out in the universe, what's out in the environment affects us as well. And so, of course, we're getting bombarded with things like, electromagnetic frequencies, but that just also like we're just around other people and we affect each other all the time by the mood that we're in and by quote unquote energy that we bring to any interaction. We have the ability to affect each other in positive and negative ways. And there's certainly, I'm sure we have all had that experience about being around people who you just feel drained by being around them. But I'm wondering if anything that you've encountered can speak
to that, like just that idea of feeling uplifted by somebody's presence or drained?
Yeah, we can. I mean, we can walk into a room where, maybe there's a married couple who's been fighting and they're not fighting anymore when we walk into the room, and they're not talking. They're not even looking at each other, but we're completely affected by the changed energies in the room. And we meet people all the time that we either recoil from. It doesn't happen very often that we have such strong reactions on either end of the spectrum, but just like two notes on the piano, a black key next to a white key, it's called a second in piano or in music. If, nobody finishes a piece on that dissonant frequency. Whereas if you play things that are a third apart on the piano, two notes, you have a harmonic frequency. You have something that's a great place to resolve. It feels finished. It feels resolved. It feels peaceful. Well, those are just frequencies in sound. They're light frequencies. They're frequencies coming from other human beings. And if we take a look at that principle of physics, that a substance of a higher frequency can cause a substance of a lower frequency to increase, think about you as the substance of a lower frequency. If you are around high vibration people who are talking about exciting things, who are doing creative work, who are eating high vibration foods, they are literally have built their cells out of higher vibration materials, they are attracting good stuff. And you are attracting and repelling all the time based on your frequencies. Now, your frequencies shift, they change, but we've all met somebody where we couldn't get away from them fast enough.
Yep.
And we can think of that energetically as, just dissonant frequencies. They aren't necessarily bad people, but for whatever reason, their frequencies are jarring to our own energies. And, on the flip side of that, we've met people where we barely know them. Maybe this is how you and I connected, is we spent just a few minutes together and I really liked you. That's all I know. We don't have the words for it necessarily, but I really liked everything about you. I like the way you talk. I like the things that you say. I love the peaceful way that you are vibrating, is one way to put it. And I hope that when we study energies a little bit, what I'm looking for in my book is to give people languaging about quantum ways of thinking about their health. There's more possibilities than just our liver interacts with our kidneys, interacts with our, respiratory system and cardiovascular system. These are old Newtonian principles, and it's not that they don't have any value. It's not that there's no such thing as an atom and an electron and a proton and a nucleus. It's that there's more. It's that there's energies flowing through us. We are emanating energies. We are a combined synergistic set of energies. And when we start to pay attention to the effects of micro choices that we make during the day, we can literally resonate at 10 hertz higher just by tending to a lot of little things that we're doing in the day, all the way from what we do when a negative emotion hits us or we realize that we're not forgiving someone, all the way to what we're putting in our grocery cart and where we're choosing to play in the food chain, all the way to, the other human beings that we allow into our energy field.
Oh yeah. Let's dive into that a little bit deeper. First of all, I really like you too. Thanks for saying that. That idea of resonance, right? That like increases like and like attracts like. That's certainly a principle. This episode of A Healthy Curiosity is brought to you by my Basics of Chinese Medicine course. You probably know your Myers-Briggs type and your astrological sign, but do you know your Chinese element? Knowing your element can help you recognize your superpowers, your innate gifts, and how to maximize them. It can also help you avoid becoming a caricature of yourself. But better yet, when you understand your constitution, you can start to get to know which acupoints, meridians, foods, tastes, and activities are going to be medicine for you. And that, my friend, opens up a whole new world of self-care. Basics of Chinese Medicine is an 8-week deep dive into understanding your inner ecosystem. Registration is now open and we start October 18th. You'll learn how to confidently locate and use some of the most powerful acupoints and some essential oils that pair well with them, how to eat with the seasons, how to tell what a food or an herb does by how it tastes, as well as each internal organ's mystical powers, its emotional and psychological functions. To register, visit brodywelch.com, that's Brody with an IE and Welch with a CH, and grab your spot. Just to circle back to your point about calories being incredibly outdated when we think about food, the quality of the food choices that we make determine the quality of our tissues. And also in Chinese medicine, we think about the quality of our thoughts, right? It's the spleen and stomach that digest our food, and it's the spleen and stomach that are in charge of our mind. And so really, like, if we want, a lot of people don't necessarily think about their mental clarity or their access to their intuition as having anything to do with what's going into their mouths, but it really does. And that we don't eat nutrients, right? We eat food. And thinking about the qi or the prana in the food that we eat, there's something very different between a tomato that's just come off the vine versus something that was like packaged and shipped 3 weeks ago and was never really allowed to ripen, or that's something that comes out of the freezer, out of a can or something like that. That there's an energetic difference that may not be measurable, or it might be, in terms of what it has to offer the body in terms of vitamins and minerals and things like that. But it's very different, the quality of its energy that it brings on. So in what you just said, I'd love to understand a few of those things that we can do that you mentioned that are really practical, that we can do right away, that can help us live in a higher vibe. And I'd also love to get into next what you've learned about food choices and what are high vibration foods and what are low vibration foods.
Well, and this kind of goes to both of your questions, quick, easy things that we can do, and referencing, what was happening to your food. Was it in the supply chain that ripened in gases in a warehouse in Chile 2 months ago? It was picked green, versus that you went in your backyard and you picked an organic tomato off the vine. Huge difference in vibrational energy. But it reminds me of the fact that Bruce Chino, who measured the vibrational frequency of a lot of different foods and of a lot of different people, talked about how animals who are raised in misery and fear, those are very low vibration emotions. And we know this because, like we said, the Heart Math Institute has charted it. You can see what happens when people go into fear or anger is that their hertz of energy, if you measure it in hertz, which is an electrical measurement we're all familiar with, it drops by like 10 hertz. So does having Epstein-Barr or massive candida overgrowth, or a lot of different disease states can drop us 10, 20, 30 hertz. And so, eating animal products that have been raised in misery and fear is a terrible idea, because when we eat that animal, going back to that principle of a substance of a higher frequency can cause a substance of a lower frequency to increase. The same is true, the flip side of that is true as well, which is if we eat or use as medication, for instance, or hang out with a substance or a person, medication, a food of lower vibration, it's going to bring our frequencies lower as well. And so, I don't really eat animals very often, but if I do, it's going to be wild caught, organic, free range. And let's talk about the vibrational frequency of some human beings. So based on the fact that anyone or anything in our energy field can raise or lower our own frequencies, Bruce Chino, who used the BT3 monitoring system, he has passed away. I'd love to be able to ask him questions, but he died several years ago. But he discovered that everyone he measured was between 62 and 68 hertz of energy, if they were healthy human beings without, chronic disease states. So just try to remember that, 62 to 68 hertz of energy. Now, he measured a lot of different foods. He measured essential oils, synthetic drugs, and drugs will always lower your vibration. That probably doesn't surprise anybody who would listen to your show, Brody, because you help them with other alternatives to that, because taking drug medications will decrease your vibration. Now, do they have their place? Yeah, if you have a splitting headache, emergency medicine, there's a place for drugs, but don't think that they're solving any problems, and don't think that they are helping you live in smooth high frequencies.
Well, it's kind of their gift, right? The beautiful thing about chemical medicine is that it shuts off parts of our physiology that are there for a reason, like making us feel pain, right? There's a time and a place for not wanting to feel that. And so things like pain relievers, it's a gift to be able to shut off from that if you're suffering. And at the same time, yes, absolutely makes so much more sense to take the nail out of your foot rather than to to mask it with a painkiller. If that's, getting to the root of the problem as opposed to masking it with a medication is always what we look at doing if it's at all possible. So yeah, it's being able to have your full vitality or not.
Right. And then when you look at medications that are made from whole plants as unadulterated as possible, and the life force in plants, essential oils, those vibrate very, very high. It could be as high as 200 hertz. So remember, a person is 62
to 68. Yeah.
Very good. And so if we're eating, a hot dog that vibrates at 2 hertz, what's that going to do to us?
Yeah, it seems like that would lower our vibration.
And it does. And especially when you do it chronically over time. And then if we drink a fresh pressed green juice, which is one of my staples, we're talking about 75 hertz. So what's that going to do for us?
Sounds elevating.
Right. Right. And so one thing that we can do, getting to your question of some quick actionable things that you can do, is be outside every day. Now, if you live in Utah, like I do, I can go outside today, but in a couple months, I won't be able to go out there without risking hypothermia. But, going outside and getting in contact with Earth, because Earth's vibration is 528 hertz. When we lie in the grass, we don't just feel amazing because it reminds us of our childhood. We feel amazing because we are discharging negative energies and we're picking up antioxidants from the Earth. We are getting rid of some of those dirty energies that come from being in all these electronics, in the energy field of all the electronics that we're all surrounded by every day. This is new. This is new in our generation, to be surrounded by dirty electricity or electromagnetic frequencies. So controlling the Wi-Fi in your home, I have it turned off in my home now. My son has to get permission to use it to watch movies or whatever in the basement, but it's turned off. I don't have it on my phone ever. We have a cell phone plan that is cellular, so that it's, putting out a signal about every 4 or 5 minutes, whereas Wi-Fi is just constantly emitting ping, 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 ping. It's radiation over time that gets in the way of your focus. It gets in the way of your sense of well-being. So controlling the EMF in your environment, we have, if you want to point to it, we have an EMF action plan. You can put it in your show notes. And this will really help reduce the dirty energies in your environment so that you just have a lot more access to the higher vibrations. You go outside, not only get in touch with the grass, lie in the grass or the sand, walking in the sand at the beach, it is so helpful to your actual health. We're starting to realize we're grounding, we're discharging electrons that we don't need, picking up ones we do. And while you're there, take a bunch of deep breaths, helping you oxygenate your whole respiratory system. You've got trillions of cells that are vibrating higher just from that act of taking 30 deep breaths. Get in the sunshine. The sunshine doesn't just give you vitamin D and forms vitamin D on the surface of your skin, which you need, but it also is charging your electrical batteries, because we have actual charge. That's how we can measure human beings in hertz. So keeping in mind that you're an energetic creature and you have electrical charge will help you with that. Drinking water right before you go outside and do some yoga stretches so that you're twisting toxins out of that spine. I teach people to do all of these things at once and make it a practice.
Awesome. Yeah. And that practice goes like way back to Qigong, right? And in Chinese medicine, this idea of going outside and doing it, especially early in the morning, going to a beautiful place in nature where the plants are thriving and where the energy just feels good, and literally gathering that energy into your body so that you can store it. This is one of the sources of qi. We can get qi from the food that we eat. We can get it from the air that we breathe. We can get it from liking our life. But that idea that people forget that breathing is half of that equation. And certainly the fact that we're never separate from our environment, going to some place that allows us to charge those batteries. I personally love the ocean for its negative ions, and the forest, just being in those kinds of places where you can just feel nourished by what's around you in a way that you can't staying inside.
I absolutely agree. And Chinese and some Ayurvedic folks 2,000 years ago figured out lots of things about our energies long before anybody here in the West has ever even thought about it. Now we're acting like we discovered all this.
Exactly. Hey, there's this thing called the human energy field and we can measure it. It's like, yeah. Old hat. But it's super cool that science is discovering this, and it'll be really interesting to see where that goes in the future.
The Basics of Chinese Medicine, Your Inner Ecosystem is an 8-week Learn From Anywhere course that will demystify acupuncture and Chinese medicine. By the end of the course, you'll be able to begin to align your lifestyle and diet with daily and seasonal rhythms so you can digest better, have more energy, and stay healthy, and determine which systems in your body tend to be out of balance and how you might tend to them with lifestyle, diet, acupressure, and more. Each week, you'll get 20 to 30 minutes of an audio lecture so you can listen in your car, at the gym, while you're washing dishes, or wherever. Fun Quizlets, reflection questions, and exercises to reinforce the material you're learning. Plus, you'll get 3 60-minute group phone calls with Brody so you can ask questions, discuss new concepts with classmates, and learn in a group setting. Go to brodywelch.com and click on Basics of Chinese Medicine under the Learn From Home tab to find out more. Classes start October 18th, so reserve your spot today.
In addition to just feeling better, what are the main reasons that you see that people should bother trying to raise their energetic vibration?
In addition to what?
Just feeling better.
In addition to feeling better, you're also going to be able to experience these flow states that we all crave, but we don't realize how much power we have over it. Peace is something that eludes people in the modern age. And we've already talked about how these chaotic frequencies that we can't see, so we don't know how dangerous they are to us. They're not just radiating ourselves and causing cells to mutate and potentially, make it more likely we get cancer. And there's a lot we can do to reduce those. There are other things that are getting in the way of us being able to feel more peace. And one of them is we don't have long, slow conversations with communities anymore. We are on social media where we don't see each other. It's easy for people to say snarky things to each other, but limiting your exposure to media, to the news. I mean, gosh, the news, it's all negative news. These are things that allow us to, and you'll see this over time as you start experimenting with human energies. You're not only going to, feel better and be able to focus better, and your disease risk will be lower because you're actually encountering less radiation. You're picking up electrons from the earth as you go outside. You're eating a diet that's different. You're eating fruits and greens, by the way, are the class of foods that are highest in measurable frequencies. So eat more plants. We've been saying it for other reasons, but not only are they the highest in micronutrients and the highest in fiber, they're also the highest in vibrational energy, but also be really selective about the people that you spend your time with. Spend time with people who like to talk about ideas and talk about exciting plans they're making, and they include you and they share with you love and gratitude and positive energies. If you find that most of your friends are talking about negatives the vast majority of the time, ask yourself, why am I attracting these kinds of energies? And that's a whole other separate conversation, but we are attracting and repelling all the time. And that sounds really disturbing when you hear it. Wait, I don't want to be repelling. Am I really repelling people? Yeah, you are. And you want to be repelling. You want to be repelling certain people and energies. And, 10 years ago, that movie, The Secret, was all about, the law of attraction. And I didn't get it back then. Like watching the movie, I didn't get it at all. It seemed like magical thinking. But think about what happens when you build your cells out of high vibration materials because you change your diet. Think about what happens when the 5 people you spend your time with elevate and inspire you. Think about what happens when you are grounding and charging and taking good care of your electrical system by drinking plenty of water a day. If we're an electrical system and we're made of mostly water and we're conductive, stands to reason that we need to drink that 8 glasses of water that we already know that we need. Well, here's the thing. When we start to do those things, we actually start attracting more opportunity. We actually start attracting higher quality people. And that applies to our intimate life, our friendships, our lovers. It applies to our work. And who wants to be in our space? I mean, I'm sure you have too, Brody, been pulled across a room somehow and you don't even know why. You just know that there's a person over there you want to meet. There's a person over there whose energies, whether they were talking on a stage at an event or you read their work and through their written word, you want to know more about them. You want to spend time in their energy field. You don't care if you just stand there and listen to them talking to other people.
Yeah,
Kind of like people are doing on your podcast right now. they raise your vibe.
I couldn't agree more about people raising your vibration and about being really careful about what we're letting into our system, whether that's through food, whether that's through media, whether that's through complaints that we're putting up with and other people in our lives. I think all that's really important. And that's one of the reasons that I hold space for groups of people to evolve together and to make the tough changes in order to actually be doing the things that will be bringing them into higher vibration. But the one thing that that stands out for me is from the Secret, an issue that I really took with that movie is that I had a lot of patients coming in with issues like depression and feeling like this is my fault. And the fact, the shadow side of we can't all be bright and sunny all the time. We're going to have anger. We're going to have sadness. We're going to have difficult emotions that if we do the spiritual bypass of oh no, I'm a high vibration being and I don't allow that anywhere near me, that's actually kind of messed up. It's a recipe for not actually being human and also perpetual or having the potential to perpetuate those negative emotion states. I'd like to hear you speak to that. How do we wrestle with when shit comes up in life and when that's what's real?
I actually love that you brought that up because living in high vibrations doesn't mean that we're at fever pitch all the time and that high is always the right place to be. On a rainy day, I feel a little melancholy and yet I love it. And I think probably everybody can relate to that. And I did on my podcast, Your High Vibration Life, I did an episode. It wasn't an interview with anyone, but it was me reflecting on the title of the episode is The Vibration of Grief. And I talked about what that movement of energy is like. We've all experienced it as we go through grief. And I did that earlier this year because I had a loss in March of this year and I was processing it. And how we usually would put that is that you're in a funk. Sometimes we aren't as productive in our work when we're going through something like this. Our mind is hijacked, but our energies and our spirit are too. But you know what? I have learned, not just as a therapist, but more importantly as a human being, is to sit with it, ask it what it needs, be in those low vibes when they call us, because it's not static. We don't ever want to flatline. We don't want to miss out on the wave, on the sine wave of frequencies. And there are low points in life, and that can be both metaphorical and very literal. If we were hooked up to an EEG or an ECG, just because we want to live in higher frequencies doesn't mean that we don't experience grief, even anger. Anger is a normal, natural reaction. It's not a bad thing. It motivates us to, run out of the way of the tiger or, jump on top of our child before they walk onto a railroad track. Anger has its place. It provokes us into motion. So I'm glad you took a minute to say, just because not all of our emotions feel good, and sometimes we might even get sick, and it's energies flowing through us on their way to resolution. I
like the way you frame that just the idea that it's part of the wave and it's part of the human experience. And even back to heart rate variability, that's a state of health, our ability to adapt to changing circumstances and for our hearts to speed up and slow down depending on what sympathetic state or parasympathetic state we're in. Our ability to adapt to change is a sign of health. And the idea that, anger moves us upward and outward, sadness moves us downward and inward. And those are energy flows that Chinese medicine has identified. Emotions are just qi. And so if we let the qi flow through us, if we experience it without denying it, it's the quickest path to get through it so that we're able to then be present again. And really, it seems to me like the present moment is where we want to be.
Yes, and I don't think that negative emotions are the problem. I think negative emotions getting stuck.
Yes, I would agree with you completely.
That's the problem. And probably I think it's hard to quantify low vibration emotions because they don't exist except in the person who's feeling them. But I think lack of forgiveness is probably the worst one. And so when we, that old saying of, not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yes, exactly.
So one of the greatest things we can do for our energetic body, if we look at ourselves as energies, like I've explained that Einstein and Tesla saw us, in just from their study of physics and biology. One of the very best things that we can do is choose to forgive. And forgiveness isn't just that person who sexually abused you in childhood. Forgiveness is forgiving each other for all the little things every single day.
Including ourselves.
Yeah, it starts with ourselves. If I can't forgive me, I can't forgive you either, right?
It's really true. And as my husband always says, his greatest fear is that I'm going to hold him to the same standard that I hold myself to, and it's a good reminder. It's like, oh yeah, I actually did like my work on being a loving being. It starts within, it starts at home.
It does. And, there's a lot of talk about self-love. And to me, when I frame everything now in terms of energies, like just kind of quietly in my head, I definitely use the language of vibration because I think it's important and I want to help bring it into popular lexicon. But I want the energies flowing. I don't have to live in peace and love and flow at all times, but I want to know what they feel like and I want to know how to get back there. I want to know how to access them. And you know what else, Brody, is I want to help other people feel them more often because that's what we're here for, is all the good stuff happens when I'm in creative flow in my work, when I am in compassion, when I'm in gratitude, and when I'm mindful. Those are all smooth, even, high, clear frequencies.
Absolutely. Yeah. That really is what it's about, is helping each other get there. I have got to wrap up pretty soon here. If people are interested and they want to know more about Vibe and how they can live in a higher vibe, you've got your book coming out, and how can people find out more and how can they connect with you?
Well, you can, in your show notes, you can put a link that I'll save some for your listeners that if they want to go get them. I have a little stash of my hardcover book. It's $25.95 that they can get for free if they just chip in shipping and handling of $9.95. That only is going to happen until we sell out of them and until October 31st, whichever comes first. October 31st is the day that the book actually publishes and is out there in the world. So if you check out Brody's show notes, we'll give you a link and you can send people there. But otherwise, you can pre-order it or you can order it starting October 31st on Amazon or any place that books are sold, called Vibe.
Awesome. Well, Robyn, thank you so much for taking the time to share your passion and your latest research with us all here on Healthy Curiosity. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodywelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.